Hello and welcome back to the Reapers. Today we're looking at setting the controls for the F-14B Tomcat, and in this video we're going to be setting up the controls for the pilot only. We've already got another video covering setting up the controls for the Rio. So I'm going to show you how I set them up to my joystick, my Hotas. I have an X56 Cytec. Now you will probably have a different stick, so as I go through and set all the commands up, I'll describe as best I can where I'm setting them up on my Hotas, and then you can emulate that as close as you can if you like. It will certainly make following the tutorial videos that we do later a lot easier. But the most important thing you'll take away from this video is which actions for the Tomcat you're setting up and why. So let's get stuck in. Options from main menu, and we'll go through everything so there's absolutely no doubt. Controls, select the F-14B pilot. So a quick description of the screen. We've got the F-14 selected here. We've got the actions selected here. There are hundreds of actions, and we're only going to want about 20 of them on the Hotas. When I say Hotas, I mean the joystick, the joystick on the right and the thrust stick on the left. Category. This is what category the action falls under. It just helps organise it. Keyboard. What keyboard bind is currently bound to a particular action. I've got no keyboard binds. There are some standard ones you can see, but nothing I actually use. The left Hotas, what left Hotas button is bound to the action, what right Hotas button is bound to the action. If you use rudder pedals, you will probably have your next column as rudder pedals. I don't use that for obvious reasons. So F-14B, so let's get stuck in. Now the first thing we do is axis, always, and I've already got my controls set obviously, so I'm just going to tape over them and you can see how I do it. First of all, let's start with the zoom view. Zoom view is something you will need to be able to fly. Almost impossible to fly without it. It allows you to zoom in and zoom out and see stuff. Obviously, with a 1080p resolution, you can't actually see very much. So we're going to use it on my left Hotas. I've got a turning knob on the top right of the thrust lever. I'm going to double click here in the left Hotas button, and I'm going to turn that knob right, turn it left. It's picked it up as Joy Z. Test it, and we're good. Next, we're going to have throttle left and right, and I just need to unconnect my throttles. I have separable throttles. You may not have, but if you don't have it, you'd have to use throttle both. So I'm going to double click on X, move it forward, move it backwards. Okay, right, move it forwards, move it backwards. Okay, check them. Lovely. I'm going to reconnect them because I don't want them apart. Lovely. That's that. Next, we want the rudder. I'm going to use the right Hotas, the twist ability in my control stick. So double click, twist left, twist right. Okay, test it. That's fine. And that pitch rudder, we need to do an axis tune. All of you will need to do this to be able to fly half decent. A dead zone is there in case your joystick is not centered. Some joysticks get a bit old and it would look something like that when it's centered. In that case, you'd have to add a dead zone to tune that bit out so it's not giving any neutral input. I don't really need it. It's not perfect, but it's just about acceptable. So all I'll need, you'll probably never want to change the saturation, but you'll need to add curvature. Whatever you choose. I do 25 for all my aircraft. It makes everything uniform and easy to learn. Roll. Double click, stick left, stick right. Okay, test. Okay, tune. No dead zone needed, curvature needed. Okay, pitch. Double click, stick forward, stick backwards. Okay, test. Neutralize, axis tune. Just about in the center, more or less. 25. So that's done. Now, next is this one. This is really important. I've struggled for 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks since the Tomcat came out, and I couldn't use DLC. The reason is I just haven't got enough buttons left on my joystick. So what I had to do was use a modifier. I had to press the shift or the control key and then use a joystick button. But that meant I had no hand to use on my thrust stick. So basically, I haven't been able to use DLC. I've just discovered this is in here. This is an axis you can set for DLC. I wish someone told me this earlier. And now I can finally use it. So on my right Hotas, my right joystick on the left, it's kind of got a thumb switch, kind of omnidirectional movable switch, almost like a mini kind of half-inch joystick, if you like. And I've set the up and down movements to the the axis here of the DLC. DLC is the direct lift control, by the way. Absolutely essential when landing on carriers. Really hard not to use it. So I'm going to double click there. I'm going to move it up position, move it down position. It's picked it up. Okay. and you can see it moving it there. You might want to add an axis tune to it. I haven't decided yet. I've only just started using the DLC because of this, so that's something you'd have to consider. Right, that's axis done. Now let's move to the left Hotas, the more binary type commands. For this, we're going to go to search. I'm going to start going through them one by one. So first of all, we're going to look for speed brake. Speed brake. And the ones I want are extend and retract. And I've got a two-way switch on the right of my left Hotas thrust lever. And it's the upper of two switches. So the up. So let me think. In the extend position, I'm going to have down. In the retract position, I'm going to have up. That's that done. Next, we want flaps. Oops. We don't want emergency. We can leave that for the cockpit. So we're just going to do flaps up and down. Same deal. It's a two-way switch on the right of the thrust stick, just below the one we were just looking at. So down is down, up is up. And that controls the full kind of binary flap commands. Really useful to use. That's that done. Next, there is a two-way switch on the very front left of the left thrust stick, and I always use that for my countermeasures, chaff and flare. So countermeasures, and we've got DLC toggle. It also toggles the DLC here, turns it on and off, which is going to confuse things a bit, but we'll find out in a minute. So on the left, I've got my chaff and my normal flat chaff and my normal flare button bound to this one command, which is countermeasure dispense. So the pilot of the F-14 can either send out one chaff or one flare, depending on the switch on the countermeasures panel on the Rio's compartment. So what I've done is I put both my flare and my normal chaff switch to that one command, so that I don't get confused, basically. That's that. And for the same action, I've also bound DLC toggle to a button on my right joystick. Actually, the thing I'd usually use to lock on to targets with radars. That's not something we do with the pilot in the F-14, and it feels more comfortable to have my DLC toggle in that position. So here I've used what I call a kind of third trigger, if you like, on the very top of the right control stick to do the DLC toggle. And for the same command, I've got my normal chaff and my flare button there. So it looks a bit inefficient, and it is, but that's just how it's comfortable for me to use. Okay, so that's something we need. Next, we're going to need, all important, auto start and auto stop. So I'm bounding this here, auto start to a top right of the base of the left Hotas, an iron switch that goes forwards and backwards. Forwards for auto stop. Backwards for auto... sorry, you know what I mean. Backwards for auto stop. Okay, Jester. Let's struggle to find this one. No, there it is. To toggle Jester's menu on and off, which you want to do if you're on single player, you've got the A key, but if you don't want to take your hands off the Hotas, then I've got this one here. This is what I'd actually use as my autopilot button for other planes, and there is an autopilot button for this plane, but we'll go over that in a bit. So I've used the kind of single binary button on the right hand side of the thrust lever left Hotas to toggle Jester on and off, and that's there. Okay, right, that's it for the left Hotas. Now let's go to the right Hotas. Okay, so let's kick off with the weapons. We've got trigger. Feeling triggered today. Trigger fires the guns, the rockets and the missiles. Right Hotas, right control stick. The main trigger on the front, just trigger 1. Next is to drop the bombs. Stores. Release. Whoops. Store, release. That's the second trigger on the right of the top of the control stick. On the right Hotas, trigger 2. Okay, we've already looked at the DLC toggle, which is on there. Next, we're going to do the nose wheel steering. So the nose wheel steering, like a lot of modern naval planes, also doubles up as an autopilot reference, or well, at least in this plane it does. So we've got autopilot reference and the nose wheel steering, and I've got a kind of binary button on the base of the front of the right control stick, right Hotas, that I like to use for nose wheel steering in all of my aircraft. So that's going on there, and that does our autopilot It's called an autopilot reference. I prefer to call it autopilot toggle, but I guess that's the right thing. Next we did our wheel brake. Wheel brake both will want, and it's going to be it's kind of like a trigger on the base, very bottom front of the right control stick, right Hotas. I always have that as my wheel brake. Click. Okay. Next, what we've got is 3 times 4-way hat switches on the very top of the right control stick, right Hotas. And I like to always have my top right one as trim in whatever aircraft I've got. So, whoops, let's go trim. Very simple. We're going to the 4-way switch. We're going to have the down position in trim down, the up position in trim up, left wing down, right wing down. That's that 4-way hat done. Next, the lower right of the 3 4-way switches on the top of the right control stick. I was trying to keep the weapon select. It's the same as I've got on my Hornet. So we're going to go weapon select, and you can use up or you can use down to cycle through the roller of weapons, but I like to select the weapons individually. So for that 4-way switch, I'm going to have down for the gun. I'm going to have up for nothing. That's a good thing to have. You'll often select your gun or something by accident and want to turn it off. Sidewinders are going to go to the right. Fox 1s and Fox 3s are going to go to the left. Okay, that's that done. Which leaves us with just one more 4-way hat. And this, in my aircraft, I like to use it as my sensor select. So in the F-18 Harrier, it's literally the sensor select left, right, up and down. In the F-15, it's going to be sensor select different ACM lock modes. Well, that's not actually technically true. Different radar modes in that, which is the nearest it has to sensor select, and so on. Same with the flanker, blah, 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 blah. So we're going to set that as the sensor select for the F-14. And the F-14 is a little bit different. We're going to search VSL. VSL, vertical scan lock-on, high and low. So I've done a full videos about these ACM lock-on modes. So just to very briefly explain, low does a kind of skinny scan, a 5-degree left to right scan, and a high up to down scan, minus 15 degrees off bore sight, plus 25 degrees of bore sight. This one does a higher up, 5 degrees width, plus 15 degrees bore sight, plus 55 degrees bore sight. And sorry, I meant to be clicking on these two here is what I meant. VSL high, VSL low. Also double up as the target designate, which is for air to ground attack. Very important, so just take note of that. So in the 4-way hat, I'm going to have it as 4-way center select, center switch hat. I'm going to have that as up for high. Sorry, got that the wrong way around, didn't I? Down as low, up as high. Try and get that right. Up as high. Yep, that's the VSLs and the target designate up and down. We're going to go on the PAL, pilot automatic lock-on. This does a kind of more traditional semi-BVR, semi-ACM search, 8 bar in elevation, 40 degrees total azimuth coverage, and it also doubles up as the target designate. That's to essentially select the target, to fix the target designator in air-to-ground mode with a bomb or something. And we're going to want that as center select left hat. PAL. PAL is my usual go-to for ACM, but some people disagree with that. And finally, we've got our pilot PLM, and sorry, I completely forgot what that stands for. Pilot lock-on manual. I think it's pilot lock-on manual. Correct if I'm wrong. This is going to... This is bore sight lock-on mode. It was going to command the antenna of the radar to look at a target in the bore sight of the aircraft at the ADL, lock onto anything within, first thing it finds, within 5 miles. Okay, and we're going to have that as our center select right. Bosh, 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 we're all done. So, okay, so that is what I'd call the skeleton commands for the F-14. That's everything you need to fly the F-15, to operate all the systems, to drop the bombs, fire the missiles, blah, blah, blah. You can add more if you've got more spare buttons. That's me completely done. If you've got more spare buttons, add some comfort things to whatever it is you want to add. That's it. I hope that helps, and see you later.